In the 1890s, a rose-colored castle rose from the streets of Minneapolis, designed not just to impress, but to withstand disaster. With steel bones hidden beneath walls of rugged quartzite, the Van Dusen Mansion looked every bit the fortress, but was it truly indestructible? Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit the subscribe button and let's explore this house. This video is brought to you in part by Victorian Society in America. More on them later. In 1826, George Van Dusen was born to a New York family and came of age when America was pushing westward. In the early 1850s, as a young man, he found work as a grain buyer on the frontier. He started in Partyville, Wisconsin in 1852, where he would load wagons with grain and haul them nearly 90 miles to the markets in Milwaukee. This humble start in the grain trade proved fortuitous. He was entering the business just as the upper Midwest milling boom was gathering momentum. By 1865, he had set up shop in Rochester, Minnesota, building grain elevators and warehouses along the expanding railroad lines. His enterprise, G.W. Van Dusen and Company, quickly rode the wave of the region's agricultural growth. In 1883, he took on a partner, Charles M. Harrington, to help manage the growing enterprise. Together they built an enormous grain processing and distribution network to capitalize on Minneapolis' status as the flour milling capital of the world. By 1888, George was president and general manager of a company that controlled more than 90 grain elevators stretching from Winona, Minnesota all the way to Pierre, South Dakota. That year, investors from England bought into the venture, and by 1889, his firm had merged with Harrington's Minneapolis company to form Van Dusen Harrington, instantly making it one of the largest grain dealers in the world at the time. The growth didn't stop there. As the new century approached, the company's reach continued to expand across the northern plains. By 1907, the company operated around 400 country grain elevators and owned 50 lumber yards. By the early 1890s, having achieved such success, he embarked on building a suitable residence to match his prosperity. George, then 67 years old, and his wife Nancy set out to construct their dream home as a capstone to a lifetime of hard work. They chose a spacious lot on what was then the southwestern edge of Minneapolis, not far from Loring Park, in an elite neighborhood of mansions. To design it, Van Dusen hired the architectural firm of Envato Elements in 1891. The plans called for an imposing mansion of roughly 12,000 square feet, a true urban estate built to impress. When the house was completed in 1893, it symbolized the pinnacle of Gilded Age luxury in Minnesota. George and Nancy's new residence would not only be one of the grandest in Minneapolis, it would also bear their name for posterity as the George W. and Nancy P. Van Dusen House. From the outside, the Van Dusen House is a striking blend of architectural styles executed in lavish materials. Its walls are built of pink Sioux quartzite stone quarried in southwestern Minnesota, giving the mansion a distinctive rosy hue. The heavy, rough-hewn blocks of quartzite are laid in a random ashlar pattern, very much in the Richardsonian Romanesque style popular in the late 19th century. Yet Van Dusen's architects did not stop there. They incorporated whimsical French Renaissance Revival elements into the designs as well. The roofline is a prime example. The house has steep, chateau-like gables and a soaring turret that wouldn't be out of place in the Loire Valley. At the very top of that turret sits a copper finial gleaming above the skyline. All the roofs and turret cones are clad in dark maned slate, adding to the rich texture of the exterior. With multiple turrets, chimneys, and ornate stone parapets bedecking its silhouette, the mansion truly looked like a medieval castle transplanted to the American Midwest. Before we head inside, a quick word about the sponsor of this video, Victorian Society in America. Are you captivated by historic architecture? Want to explore, learn, and dive even deeper into the past? With the Victorian Society in America, you'll have the chance to travel to American cities and tour stunning 19th century buildings, pursue learning through internationally acclaimed summer programs in American cities and abroad, including Chicago, Newport, and London to name a few. Additionally, members will enjoy a free subscription to 19th Century, the semi-annual publication packed with articles on art, architecture, preservation awards, and book reviews. Visit the website below in the video description and become part of the Victorian Society in America today. Thank you, Victorian Society in America, for sponsoring this video. Now back to our tour. Stepping through the grand arched entrance, visitors in Van Dusen's day would find an interior as extravagant as the exterior promised. The design and decor inside the mansion were a conscious melange of historic styles meant to convey old-world sophistication. A massive, hand-carved grand staircase dominated the front hall, illuminated by large skylights that brought sunlight down into the core of the house. The mansion featured an array of luxurious amenities that were state-of-the-art for 1893. There were 10 fireplaces in total, ensuring that every major room could be kept warm in winter. Throughout the rooms, craftsmen had lavished attention on woodwork and masonry. Intricate oak paneling and wood carvings lined the walls, and parquet hardwood floors spread underfoot. Modern conveniences were tucked into the design as well, including electric call buttons and presumably one of the earliest home elevators in the city, an incredibly rare feature at the time. Every detail in the Van Dusen house was meant to exude wealth and cultural refinement. This was a home that announced its owners as people of stature and taste. Interestingly, the mansion also included some hidden features that spoke to the Van Dusen's personal experiences. George and Nancy had once survived a tornado that destroyed a previous home of theirs, and that brush with disaster apparently influenced how their new house was built. Unlike the typical brick or wood mansions of the era, the Van Dusen house was secretly reinforced with steel beams, structural I-beams embedded in its frame to make the masonry structure extra strong. The house would indeed endure many trials over the coming century, and thanks to these robust construction choices, it survived where flimsier structures might not. George and Nancy Van Dusen enjoyed their new home, but sadly, Nancy did not live many years to see it flourish. She passed away in 1899 at the age of 67. George, however, continued to reside in the mansion and remained a prominent, if somewhat private figure in Minneapolis. He passed away at home in 1915 at the age of 88. His business legacy lived on. The Van Dusen Harrington Company he started continued to operate elevators for decades and eventually became part of the giant Peavey Company, later absorbed by Conagra Foods in the 1980s. The mansion remained in the Van Dusen family for some time, though they eventually vacated in 1937. At that point, the last of the Van Dusens departed the residence, and for the first time since 1893, the house was empty. The building sat vacant between 1937 and 1940, a lovely pink castle on the edge of downtown, awaiting a new chapter. In May of 1940, a small fire broke out in the rear portion of the unoccupied mansion. The blaze charred part of the kitchen and a stairwell, a sobering reminder that the grand house was vulnerable without upkeep. As the decades went on, the Van Dusen house saw a succession of different occupants and adaptations, a fate common to many old urban mansions. By the late 1980s, however, the grand house had fallen on hard times, entering an era of neglect. It sat vacant from 1987 onward, and without regular maintenance, the building began to deteriorate. Windows were broken, water and weather did damage, and some of the once elegant spaces were vandalized or pilfered for antique fixtures. The empty mansion, now in a decaying state, became a magnet for petty crime and graffiti in the early 1990s. Neighbors and preservationists grew increasingly alarmed that this irreplaceable historic house might be lost for good. Indeed, by 1994, the situation was dire. The city of Minneapolis had issued a permit to demolish the Van Dusen house as no buyer had successfully come forward with funds to restore it. At the 11th hour, salvation arrived. In autumn of 1994, just 2 weeks before demolition was scheduled to begin, a person stepped in to rescue the Van Dusen mansion. Bob Poling, a businessman from La Crosse, Wisconsin, had learned of the house's plight and decided to buy the property. Local craftspeople restored and refinished the extensive woodwork, sourcing matching wood for missing sections and even hand-carving new balusters for the grand staircase, and the exterior's pink quartzite was cleaned and repointed. Today it stands as an architectural gem, ready to face the next century, having been fully rejuvenated. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. What did you think about this house? Let me know down below in the comments section. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to Victorian Society in America for sponsoring this video. Check out their link in the video description to find out how you can get involved today. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time on This House.